On Thursday's Guy Benson Show from California, the great Katie Pavlich will be here on Political News of the Day. Congressman Kevin Kiley of California coming up at 2 o'clock on KCMO.
Well, Guy Benson will be here 1 week from tonight. We'll have our big event out at Boulevard, and it did sell out. So that is all wrapped up. The Guy Benson event has sold out, and we are looking forward to seeing 200 of our closest KCMO Talk Radio friends 1 week from tonight out at Boulevard Brewing. Going to be absolutely fantastic. Now, last night, the presidents of the United States brought back the travel bans that were so controversial, as I put up my air quotes, during his first time in office in 2017. So he put
the Muslim travel bans that he did, right? Remember?
Yeah, that's right. You know, we weren't even doing this show together at that point, John, but yes, as it was dubbed back then, the Muslim travel bans. No, Muslims were not ever banned from the country. There were many countries on that list that happened to be majority Muslim countries, but there was no Muslim travel ban. Even when this was announced last night, the media freakout over this was not nearly what it was 7.5 years ago, 8.5 years ago now. It's almost like they are kind of maybe somewhat learning their lesson. So Trump rolled this out last night, and he did it in the wake of what happened in Boulder, Colorado, where you had this man who came here during Joe Biden's tenure, overstay a visa with his family, and then toss Molotov cocktails at peaceful protesters on behalf of Israel over the weekend, injuring 8 people, 2 are still in the hospital. So Trump said enough of this, and here's what he rolled out last night.
Very simply, we cannot have open migration from any country where we cannot safely and reliably vet and screen those who seek to enter the United States. That is why today I am signing a new executive order placing travel restrictions on countries including Yemen, Somalia, Haiti, Libya, and numerous others. The strength of the restrictions we're applying depends on the severity of the threat posed. The list is subject to revision based on whether material improvements are made, and likewise, new countries can be added as threats emerge around the world. But we will not allow people to enter our country who wish to do us harm, and nothing will stop us from keeping America safe. Thank you very much.
This is what I voted for. I don't know about you, but this is in part what I voted for. You know, if Joe Biden didn't spend 4 years basically rolling with an open borders policy, this may not have been necessary. But as we sit here this morning, and this administration is still trying to get a handle on the 15, 20 million people that got allowed into the country over the last 4 years, who they are, some of them overstaying visas, some of them tossing Molotov cocktails at American citizens who are peacefully protesting on behalf of Israel. Something has to be done to at least slow down what has been taking place when it comes to our country over the last 4 years.
And, of course, Trump's decision is met with, this is un-American. And I'm thinking, no, it's very American. It is America's interest.
And there are only 12 countries on the list. Let's also be clear about that, right? Like, there are 195 countries in the world. So that means if you're from one of the other 183 countries, you're good. Oh, you're good. Afghanistan on the list. Chad's on the list. Congo. Haiti, Iran, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, Yemen, all on the list. That means we got 180 plus countries that are not under a travel ban to the United States. All right. And those 183 countries include Muslim countries, include some countries that, frankly, are not filled with the best actors in the world right now. China, Russia. But
commies?
Yes.
Commies on the list?
Commies are on the list. So this feels like a very specific and targeted list. There's not something that all of these 12 countries happen to have in common other than we don't trust their governments, right? That's what it's really about more than anything else. We don't trust their governments to do the proper vetting on their end. Therefore, we're pumping the brakes on them. That's it. How does the Associated Press cover this? They write here, President Trump on Wednesday resurrected a hallmark policy of his first term.
The only time they'll use that word, by the way. Right? Resurrected.
Yeah, they're not big fans of the word resurrection, except for when it comes to Trump reenacting travel bans.
Absolutely.
The ban takes effect Monday at 12:01 a.m., a cushion that may avoid the chaos that unfolded at airports nationwide. The chaos that unfolded at airports nationwide when a similar measure took effect with virtually no notice back in 2017. I remember that so well. I'm sure you do too. When Trump enacted his travel ban the first time around. And the media was like, oh my gosh, they were loving the footage from LAX and JFK and the chaos that they claimed was ensuing at our nation's airports. It's a different world right now. You guys can try that again come Monday morning if you want, but I promise you, this is not going to be the thing that sinks Trump. They want it to be. They want to find that thing that sinks them. This will not be it, John. I promise you, this is not going to be it.
Well, pointing to chaos at the airports, I think we've got other issues at our airports, right? So thank you for bringing that up again.
Yeah. Maybe they can actually follow some of the real chaos happening at our airports, like making sure the flights get off the ground on time, which continues to be a massive problem. People get to where they got to go in one piece, for crying out loud.
Just don't fly out of Newark. Just fly out of somewhere else.
Yeah, just pick another one. And less worried about whether or not, folks from Afghanistan, Iran, Libya, and Somalia can get here in one piece. They have such misplaced priorities. But you know what? It's par for the course for them. They just can't help themselves. And it's also why you want to talk about a little tidbit that is being overlooked right now in the media. So as of this week, the Real Clear Politics polling average, which is all the polls for every president combined into one, it's the average. As of right now, Trump's approval at this point in his second term is higher than Obama's and Bush's at this point in their second terms. They're all within the margin of error, but Trump at 47.5, ahead of Obama, 47.1 back in 2013, and George W. Bush at 45.9% approval back in 2005. There you go. That will not be reported by your national media this week. I promise you that. Coming up next, the goober of all goobers wants to rewrite the Pledge of Allegiance. Let's talk about it coming up.
You're listening to Mundo in the Morning on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM.
Well, somebody wants to change the Pledge of Allegiance. Oh, of course, it's Michael Moore. No one's heard from the guy since he was doing those documentaries on like Fahrenheit 9/11. He did that one. He did one on the Flint, Michigan water crisis. And he's generally just a big old slob who is still crying about basically why every left-wing policy has not been implemented in America. He did have a moment of clarity back in 2016 when he basically told his own political party, hey, Trump's got a chance here. You guys are hemorrhaging, especially white working class voters, but just working class voters in general. But since then, he's totally gone off the deep end. So now he's got this new plan. Michael Moore wants to and wrote his own version of the Pledge of Allegiance. So Pledge of Allegiance, of course, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Gosh, how many times did we all say that back in grade school, middle school, high school? Hundreds, if not thousands of times. And just a quick note, it was June of 1954 that one of our own, President Eisenhower, approved the congressional resolution adding the words under God to the Pledge of Allegiance. So how about a little round of applause all these years later for our own Ike? The Knights of Columbus and other groups, as well as Eisenhower himself, had lobbied for that change to the Pledge of Allegiance. So nice job there by President Eisenhower. So here we go. This is Michael Moore, who took it upon himself to rewrite the Pledge of Allegiance in a manner consistent with the left's agenda. Here it is. Ready? Drum roll. I pledge allegiance to the people of the United States of America and to the democracy for which we all stand, one person, one vote, one nation, part of what? Everyone! Exclamation point. A seat at the table. Everyone! A slice of the pie. Of course, Michael Moore's talking about pie in the Pledge of Allegiance. With liberty and justice, equality and kindness, and the pursuit of happiness for all. Of course, no reference to God there from Michael Moore, but he did reference pie. Shows you a lot about his priorities there.
Well, and some home furnishings, of course.
Yeah.
The ever-popular seat at a table.
Yeah, yes, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
The olds, they love
Commie
the seat
Marxists,
at the table.
yes. Yep.
Oh, my gosh.
It's like I said, you don't want a seat at the table. You want to own the table. You want to not be at the meeting because you're busy with other things.
And you want to show up to the table while bringing nothing to the table. Mm-hmm. That's the other part that's important as well.
I guess he needed a place for the pie, right?
Yeah. Oh, man. This is just, I saw this go viral yesterday afternoon. Michael Moore rewriting the Pledge of Allegiance. And I'm like, first off, I'm the one thing I'll give him credit for, any Democrat who is like one person, one vote. Okay. I mean, I'll give you that.
That was mighty generous of him,
Yes,
wasn't
it was. Not exactly in the playbook typically for them, but I'll give them that much. That's pretty good. And that's where it ends. That's where it ends. But a lot of people also looked at that one person, one vote deal as a way to push for replacing the Electoral College, which, of course, they don't like. We're not technically a democracy, right? We are a republic. So Michael Moore doesn't like that. Michael Moore would prefer that we just treat this country as, rather than 50 states, just have one big nation, one person, one vote, and let popular votes win. Because then they can pull off all their shenanigans in places like Chicago and L.A. and Seattle and, New York and, the rest of us be damned. Who cares about Kansas City? Who cares about Middle America? They'll do all their tricks in their big cities, and you know what? They'll get exactly what they want most of the time.
Or we'll replace all the school zone signs with Sharia law zone signs here, right?
Yeah, that could work
Simple
out as
vote.
well.
Yeah, sure.
Jonathan Turley, political commentator, summed up Moore's hypocritical silliness this way. He said, the call for unity is particularly curious from a person who has labeled Republicans as racist and consistently engaged in rage rhetoric. Among his prior unifying, quote, slice of the pie declarations was that white people are not good people and are inherently dangerous. The Moore Pledge has all the elements that would unify any gathering on Rodeo Drive. It replaces nationalism with globalism and introduces a pastry-based patriotism. That is well said from Jonathan Turley. Michael Moore, I don't think you're getting your way on the pledge, but I guess it's like anyone else. He's just trying to stay relevant. And when you haven't been for the better part of 2 decades now, trying to get some attention for rewriting the Pledge of Allegiance may be one way to do it.
You remember when Stephen in Johnson County said he was, too fat to hide and too slow to run?
Yes.
That's Michael Moore. He can't move out of the country. He's not going anywhere, so he might as well do this.
Yeah,
right?
yes. He doesn't want to join Rosie in Ireland, so he's got to figure out a way to stay relevant here in the States.
It's too inconvenient to move.
Yeah. They don't feed him well enough over there in Ireland. Can only eat so many potatoes and, nonsense before he says.
Checked out the dietary needs and said, I'm good here.
I'll stay here in the States. That's well done there, John. We haven't heard from our buddy Stephen in Johnson County in months.
He's called a couple times, but he's been busy and had to jump off. But
I'm glad he's
still around.
I'm glad he's doing well. We're still looking, though, for Larry in Prairie Village, Don in Blue Springs. They are just MIA. Where are you, boys? It's been a long time. 640, good morning. Glad you're here on KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM. We are always streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. Pete, how about this? This is on the text line, 913-408-7957. How about one person, two genders? Oh, I see what you did there.
Like that. We could add that.
We could add that to the old pledge.
In the spirit of Dwight Eisenhower's move of adding some words, let's do that.
Yeah. Also on the text line, I would suggest one legal citizen, one vote. Ooh, that's good. Mm-hmm. That's good. You guys are rewriting the pledge very well.
Should we drop a draft and send it back to him? He'd love that, wouldn't he?
I got to get a direct contact from Michael Moore.
We, the undersigned.
Yeah. I'm not sure I have the right connections to get a hold of Michael Moore. I'm just not sure I have that person. Oh, my goodness. That's great. Nice job on the text line. Pete, I think I'm going to puke. It's too early for that. No, listen, have some fun with it. We're laughing at Michael Moore. Not trying to take this too seriously, just having a good time. All right, that's what it's all about here on KCMO Talk Radio. So Joe Biden, the former president of the United States, he pushed back last night on the current president's announcement of an investigation into his presidential actions and auto pen use that allegedly may have been covered up in a cognitive decline that, of course, the former president was dealing with during his time in office. Here is what Joe Biden said in a statement late last night that was shared with Axios and other media outlets. Let me be clear. They wrote it like Joe Biden speaks to try to double down on this idea of Joe definitely wrote the statement. Let me be clear. That was usually Joe Biden when he was in office. He'd get out the words, let me be clear, and then he would mumble his way through something boom, boom, boom. That's exactly what he would do. Anyway, the statement, since it was written, read, let me be clear. I made the decisions during my presidency. I made the decisions about the pardons, executive orders, legislation, and proclamations. Any suggestion that I did not is ridiculous and false. Adding, this is nothing more than a distraction by Donald Trump and congressional Republicans who are working to push disastrous legislation that would cut essential programs like Medicaid and raise costs on American families, all to pay for tax breaks for the ultra-wealthy and big corporations, he added in an emailed statement. Boy, they are just running out the same old tired talking points, aren't they?
Plagiarized that part, right?
Yeah. That one's going back 25, 30 years in the Democrat playbook. Listen, this needs to be investigated. They have no choice, congressional Republicans, but to investigate this. This is potentially Watergate on steroids if the man who the American people elected to the White House, and even that may be iffy, but let's just roll with that for now. The man that the American people elected to the White House may have been comatose for at least half of his 4-year term. And he may not have had any idea what was going on in the White House. That is a scandal of all scandals. And for Biden to poo-poo this thing and say, boy, these guys are just trying to cover up their agenda. Well, no, they're not. They're actually very much bragging about their big, beautiful bill. And even I have problems with that big, beautiful bill because I don't know how beautiful it is. I know it's big. I don't know how beautiful it is, but they're not shying away from that. They're also not shying away from this potential investigation into who was actually running the White House when Joe Biden was the president of the United States. Both of those things are true at the same time. And that's what's going on right now. And there's nothing wrong with that. They should be doing this, by the way. And Biden's statement, frankly, I don't think helped his cause at all late last night. Coming up, the 6 at 6, top 6 stories in the 6 o'clock hour that you need to know. Coming up on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM.
Dave Ramsey here, and you're listening to Pete Mundo on KCMO Talk Radio, now airing on FM at 95.7.
6:50, good morning. Glad you're here on KCMO, what has been a busy news morning across the state of Missouri. So let's get to it.
It's time for the 6 at 6 on 95.7 KCMO Talk Radio. Number 1.
Well, the Missouri Senate passing a bill to help fund stadiums for the Chiefs and the Royals. This happening in the early morning hours at about 2 a.m. This took place this morning. Senate Bill 3, also known as the Show Me Sports Investment Act, helps professional sports teams pay off construction bonds with tax dollars generated at the stadiums. It passed the full Senate by a vote of 19-13 this morning. And the bill would pay for up to 50% of the cost of a new or renovated stadium. So this getting done in the early morning hours. Scott Fawn from the Missouri Times knows the inner workings of Jefferson City as well as anybody. He will be here just after the top of the hour in about 10 minutes. I've reached out to a couple of state senators, but I think they're all sleeping right now because I was getting some text messages at about 4 a.m., right around when I was waking up, just giving me some updates on what happened. So they got this done last night. Now they passed two other bills last night into early this morning. One is basically an infrastructure bill, Senate Bill 1, that passed 23-10. And the other one was Senate Bill 4 that was basically funding for St. Louis in the wake of the tornadoes from a few weeks ago. So tornado relief, infrastructure funding, and Chiefs Royal Stadium funding, all passing the Missouri State Senate last night, early this morning. They wrapped up about 2:30 in the morning, and now it will go to the Missouri House that has to come back for its special session. So big developing news that we will continue to follow all morning long here on KCMO.
Number 2.
In our 6 at 6, Jackson County legislator Manny Abarca was arrested on domestic battery charges in Johnson County yesterday afternoon. Abarca's wife, Alexis Garcia, told the Kansas City Star in a text message their 2-year-old son, Manuel Abarca V, known as Luca, was returned safely to her care yesterday as well. She had not seen her toddler in about a week and reported him and Abarca as missing on Sunday. Prosecutors filed the domestic violence charge in Johnson County District Court at about 6 a.m. yesterday, according to court records. Charging documents indicate that Abarca had a physical altercation with his wife last Thursday, May 29th. Charging documents read, quote, Manuel Ray Abarca IV did then and there unlawfully and knowingly cause physical contact with Garcia in a rude, insulting, or angry manner. Abarca's father witnessed this incident, according to charging documents. So, listen, you pray for everybody involved, but this is obviously a bad look all around. Politically speaking, Manny Abarca thought of himself, I believe, as somebody as having a bright future, and obviously he's got much bigger problems on his hands right now.
Number 3.
In our 6 at 6, a travel ban, courtesy of the Trump administration. 12 countries on the list as of 12:01 a.m. on Monday. That would include Afghanistan, Chad, Congo, Haiti, Iran, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and Yemen. There also are a handful of countries that will have partial restrictions. Cuba, Turkmenistan, Venezuela, all on that list as well. The proclamation includes exceptions for lawful permanent residents, existing visa holders, and certain visa categories and individuals whose entry serves U.S. national interests. This will go into effect once again, 12:01 a.m. on Monday, the travel ban night by the President of the United States.
Number 4.
In our 6 at 6, Karine Jean-Pierre is leaving the Democrat Party, the former White House press secretary, who spent, 4 years basically lying to the American people on behalf of Joe Biden, is now trying to basically rehab her image, saying she's leaving the Democrat Party, and of course, is trying to cash in and write a tell-all book. Shocker. Didn't see that coming.
I didn't see her leaving the party, but all the stammering she did, maybe she did actually have trouble executing the job there.
Wow, that's very generous of you, John.
A little bit, yeah.
That's very nice of you.
Such a nice man.
Yeah, or she's just trying to get a payday here.
Or that.
Or that. Here's her book. It's titled Independent, A Look Inside a Broken White House, Outside the Party Lines. I'm pretty sure she just had to change her party affiliation to use that title for her book. I think that's partially what's going on here. Well, I can't stay as a Democrat if my book's going to be titled Independent and includes the phrase outside party lines. But be that as it may, that was Karine Jean-Pierre's big move yesterday.
You know, it's quit before you get ostracized, because had she stayed in the party.
Oh, gosh. The description also says here, according to the book, the former Biden press secretary didn't come to the decision about leaving the party lightly. Oh, gosh. Okay. All right. Swan song for Karine Jean-Pierre. I've heard enough. I might throw up.
Number 5.
In our 6 at 6, I know this is big for you guys on the other side of the glass, but just so you know, it has been announced that this year's tickets to Pride Fest are up $5, from $5 to $10 this year. This comes from KMBC Channel 9. Kansas City's Pride Fest is coming up this weekend. And because they didn't get the sponsorship monies that they previously had gotten in other years, they had to double the ticket price from $5 to $10. So there you go.
Of course, I get my same old problem. I don't know what to wear.
Well,
so I got nothing to wear to it. So
I can probably lend you a thong or something, John, if you want.
yeah, that's a treat for all, isn't it? There are some people worse than I'm out there, though. I will say that.
I'll just say
it's
you
not a competition. I'm not joining.
All I can say is you don't have to wear much, as far as I can tell. Mark, you got anything that John could wear this weekend to Pride Fest, or not really up your alley?
Nah.
Anybody got a fishnet tank top, half top, crop top?
I used to have some skinny jeans, but it's long past me by.
Yeah, I don't think you fit into those anymore, do you?
Mumford & Sons is passe now.
Yeah,
so.
You're right. All right. Well, just figure that offer. Throw it out there.
Thank you.
Yep. Next
Number 6.
The Royals rained out last night. They will have a doubleheader today in St. Louis against the Cardinals. First game is set for 12:45 this afternoon in St. Louis. And then you've got the nightcap at 6:45. So a doubleheader. Royals, Cardinals starting this afternoon. Scott Fawn of the Missouri Times is next. Well, while most of us were sleeping, at least I was sleeping when this happened, the Missouri Senate passed in the early morning hours the Show Me Sports Investment Act, also known as Senate Bill 3. Got by one vote, needed 18. They got 19 votes in the Missouri State Senate, and this bill would pay for up to 50% of the cost of a new or renovated stadium for the Chiefs and or the Royals. Scott Vaughn of the Missouri Times is here on KCMO Talk Radio. Scott, as you were following this late last night into the early morning hours, what was your main takeaway from how this all went down last night?
There's several. I'll start with, I've said it many times on these airwaves. There's one word you can use to describe Mike Keogh, and that is a winner. A winner. He wins. He doesn't whine on Facebook. I know some folks would prefer him to get on Twitter and attack Republicans. He doesn't do any of that. All he does is win, 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 no matter what. There's a lot of game balls to give out, literally. Curtis Gregory, what an amazing performance by a guy his first year in the Senate. You want to talk about a tricky bill to get done? Curtis Gregory had the poise, the statesmanship. He had built his reputation all session as someone that all 33 of his colleagues could trust. He needed all that credibility the last 2 weeks. And it's what's an old saying? You can't build a reputation. You can't build it when you need it. He built his reputation. And Curtis Gregory, I'm telling you, when they throw out the first pitch at the new Kaufman, if Curtis Gregory isn't there, somebody's not doing their job. I will give you a game ball, Pete. I 100% firmly believe one of the reasons this was such a priority to the governor, one of the reasons this was a priority to folks in Kansas City, you have covered this more than anybody from pillar to post. You have made this a very high-profile priority. And I'm not just saying them on your airwaves. I think you've led the charge in calling attention to this. Whether, however it came out, I firmly believe it was a bigger priority to people in Jeff City because of the coverage you give it. The House of Representatives, John Patterson, they were dominant last night. The Senate got nothing. It was the Senate Democrats talking about how we're going to be mad about a PQ. I have no idea why the Republicans don't PQ them weekly if this is their response. They got some storm relief, but if FEMA comes in, they don't. And it's a lot of it's in some kind of really tax credit that's going to be on your 26 taxes. It was the Senate Democrats folded for nothing. Joe Nicola, I think the senator from Independence learned a lesson. And if I had to guess, it reminds me the first year in the state Senate of a young man with a crew cut named Bill Eigel. He got a piece of legislation totally taken and bent and got it stuck to him. And he spent the next 7 years making them regret it. I think Senator Nicola learned a lesson last night, and I think there'll be lasting implications of taking advantage of him last night. But as far as today goes, great job all around.
So you mentioned Joe Nicola, state senator from Independence. We had him on the show earlier this week. He really wanted his property tax bill to pass in exchange for his vote for the Chiefs and the Royals funding. He didn't get that. So what exactly happened on that front last night when it came to Joe Nicola trying to get his property tax bill across the finish line, specifically for Jackson County?
Senate Democrats sold cheaper than that property tax.
Okay. So Senate Democrats got what they wanted. So Nicola's holdup was not worth it. Was not really of value.
They didn't get what they wanted. They just sold for very, very, very cheap. And look, Joe Nicola's tax plan was going to be very hard to get through. It's criminal what they're doing to y'all on your property taxes over there. Joe Nicola is right. I honestly think most folks support his idea. You're going to have to. Public education should stop worrying about charter schools, and they should start being deathly afraid of people paying these exorbitant property taxes, finding out where that money's going. Joe Nicola is right, and I think he thought he had a deal at one point. but it didn't come to fruition. I think the Senate. I think everybody was surprised at how cheap the Senate Democrats were willing to sell. And give the House credit. I mean, House Budget Chairman Dirk Deaton slapped the Senate in the face, and their response, with all their tradition and bluster and charisma, was, "Thank you, sir. May I have another?"
Wow. Okay, so now this thing is done in the Senate, obviously. They adjourned early this morning. The House comes back, next week? And they've got to pass the stadium funding bill to get it to the governor's desk. Is this the easier hurdle on the House side? So is this basically a done deal now, or is there still some things that need to be fleshed out?
Well, I mean, you're going to have to probably in the light of day, after folks have a cup of coffee and a little bit of sleep, go read through the fine print of this to know all the things that are in it to really analyze it. But yes, this is about as close to a done deal as one of these things can get. The House has already voted for this once.
Mm-hmm.
They've taken the tough vote. Now you could, I mean, the worst case scenario, if you're them, you'll have to have Democrat votes to pass this in the House, just like you did in the Senate. I suppose the House Democrats could decide to try to extract some concessions, since they don't get very many chances to have leverage. But I don't see it. I think that they'll show up, pass this. I don't. If you're in the House, I cannot imagine that you think there's a better deal out there for you. You did all around the state. Senator Weber got some stuff from Mizzou. This was an I-70 special session, and the Democrats live on I-70. I just don't see. If you're a House member, you got everything you wanted. Now, if you're a rural Missouri House member, I guess you'll just shut up and take it. But if you're a House member, if you're House leadership, this is the best possible. If you're John Patterson, this is the absolute best possible outcome for you. I don't believe, and I don't know this. I don't think it's possible that John Patterson thought this is the type of deal he would get sent to him. In his best possible outcomes, I don't think he thought it would have went this well.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's amazing. All right, so then, Scott Vaughn, the last question, maybe the biggest question, is this Chiefs-Royals deal a good deal for the taxpayer in the state of Missouri?
I'm not going to purport to tell you that I'm an expert on these things enough to give you a qualified answer. But I will say this. The governor with the best business background since Governor Stark back in the 40s says it is. I always look at motivations. Mike Kehoe has absolutely no political upside to this. I promise you, everyone that voted for this on the Republican side in their next competitive election, the first mailer will be that they voted for this. If someone challenges Mike Kehoe in the primary, this will be in their announcement speech. There is no political upside whatsoever to doing this. So I have to believe he truly thinks this is good for the state, because why else would you put taxpayer money into a stadium? And the Chiefs are one thing, but let's be honest, the Royals do not have the public support the Chiefs do throughout the state.
Mm-hmm.
I trust his business acumen more than mine, because he's been more successful in business than me. And I just don't see any political upside whatsoever. So it makes me think, yes, I believe these are my white trash barometers, right? These are not my economist barometers, but my political observer barometers all tell me, yeah, it's good deal for the state, because why in the world else would you do it?
All right, Scott Vaughn, Missouri Times, been all over it down there in Jeff City. Thank you for being here, my friend, on short notice. We appreciate it, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Hey, congratulations to you, man. You haven't been all over it. You've been all over it from start to finish, and now it's going to be interesting to see how the Jackson County folks take the ball from here. Once Patterson delivers this next week, we'll see what they do with the ball.
Yeah, man. Well, hey, I appreciate those nice words, Scott, and we'll talk to you soon, my man. We'll get you back on, all right?
You bet.
There you go. Great stuff, as always, out of Scott Vaughn, Missouri Times publisher on KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM. The breaking news in the overnight hours, the Missouri Senate passing Kansas City Stadium funding for the Chiefs and the Royals. Now it goes to a special session on the House side. Mayor Quinton Lucas will react to this coming up at 7:35 in 20 minutes on KCMO. And also you, 913-408-7957. That's how you join us on a news-breaking Thursday on KCMO Talk Radio. Diamonds Direct is the place you want to be thinking about right now. If you're getting ready for a graduation celebration coming up this weekend, maybe it's time for that big engagement. Kate and I would have gotten engaged 13 years ago this weekend, actually. I was thinking about that the other day. And whatever you need, whether it's that gift that fits a budget from under $500 to a once-in-a-lifetime investment, Diamonds Direct offers beautiful quality pieces at every price point. And just as beautiful as the pieces and the price point, well, the way you get treated. The white glove service from Angie and her team at Diamonds Direct, just absolutely outstanding, as it's been for us on multiple occasions over at Diamonds Direct. You get the transparent pricing that you just don't get from other places, and you get the 110% lifetime upgrade guarantee. So when you want to upgrade your diamond, you will get 110% of your purchase price towards your new selection, and always lifetime service and always free. Go over to 119th and Row or start shopping at diamondsdirect.com.
On Thursday's Guy Benson Show from California, the great Katie Pavlich will be here on Political News of the Day. Congressman Kevin Kiley of California, coming up at 2 o'clock on KCMO.
Guy Benson will be here 1 week from tonight on the text line, 913-408-7957. Good morning, Pete. I listened to Guy Benson's show yesterday. I hope you booked fantastic accommodations for him. The Holiday Inn Express is not going to cut it. Well, who are you to say the Holiday Inn won't cut it for Guy Benson? What about the Days Inn in Ellis, Kansas, where they arrested Thomas Tolbert the other day? You think that'll work? Maybe too far of a drive for him. But.
That Holiday Inn's right across from Casey's Pizza, right?
Yeah.
Casey's gas station. Right?
That's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
Guy's going to do just fine, okay? He'll be okay. Don't worry. He will be taken care of. If he doesn't like his visit to Kansas City, it will not be because of our accommodations for him. He will be doing just fine. I promise you that. And the event is officially sold out for next week. So we look forward to seeing a lot of you out there. It is going to be a fantastic time. The breaking news in the overnight hours came out of the Missouri State Senate. The funding for the Chiefs and the Royals has passed the biggest hurdle. And that, of course, is the state Senate. It got through by one vote last night, 19-13. So if you're on the Kansas side and you're a legislator over there, well, I would let the Star Bond deal expire at the end of this month. If these two teams come back to you and they say, hey, we need a little more time still. I know that Missouri passed this thing at the state level, but would you guys extend the Star Bond? Don't do it. You're getting played. Now, this was the biggest hurdle that had to be cleared to, I think, keep these teams in the state of Missouri. There still will have to be some kind of a local deal with Jackson County for the Chiefs, maybe Clay County for the Royals, or Jackson County for the Royals. I don't really know. What I do know is that 15 months ago, there was no state deal at all on the table. It was just keep the 3/8 cent sales tax rolling, and the Royals were going downtown, and the Chiefs were staying at Arrowhead. Now, all of a sudden, you've got this deal with the state of Missouri, so I wonder if any kind of local deal would be just icing on the cake. Do you really need a local deal? If the state deal now pays for 50% of the cost of a new or renovated stadium, Senate Bill 3, the Show Me Sports Investment Act. Do they truly need Jackson County if you're the Chiefs? I mean, they probably do just because the county owns the stadium, right? So you're going to have to figure out something. But what do you actually need? Here's what the Chiefs would do if they were smart. They would figure out a way to get the Royals off of the ballot. They don't want to be on the ballot with the Royals anymore. The Royals are the far more controversial part of this deal. They would have their own sales tax that would actually be less than 3/8 of a cent. They would kick some money back to the taxpayer and say, hey, we're going to actually cut your taxes. Instead of 3/8 of a cent, we need, let's say, 1/5 of a cent. I'm just making up the number here. And they would put themselves on the ballot in Jackson County, and they would have voters go to the polls maybe this fall in the middle of football season, and they would try to get some sales tax revenue, but they could bill it as a tax cut. That's what they could do. Now, what would that mean for the Royals? What kind of deal would they need from either the county or the city? I don't know. But the Chiefs want to be out on their own anyway. These two teams do not want to be connected at the hip anymore. And frankly, there's no reason for them to be connected at the hip anymore if the Royals want to leave the Truman Sports Complex, which they do. They've made that very clear. So, you know what? Just go at it on your own and tell the taxpayer, we're actually going to give you a tax break here. We want to cut your taxes. We only want 1/5 of a penny. You're currently giving us 3/8 of a cent that we're splitting with the Royals. And see how that plays out. That would be a pretty big political win, and they would probably get a deal done. And it would pass because the Royals' issues were the reasons that this thing failed anyway back in April of 2024. The mayor of Kansas City will react to this breaking news from early this morning. Quinton Lucas on this story and more next.
from the nation's heartland. It's Mundo in the Morning on 95.7 FM KCMO Talk Radio.
If you are just waking up this morning, just getting going, just hopping in the car, well, early this morning at about 2 a.m., the Missouri Senate passed Senate Bill 3, known as the Show Me Sports Investment Act. And that will help, in our case, the Chiefs and the Royals pay off construction bonds with tax dollars generated at the stadiums, passing by one vote, 19-13. The bill would pay for up to 50% of the cost of a new or renovated stadium. Mayor Quinton Lucas is here on this breaking news story. Mr. Mayor, good morning. Is this enough to keep these teams in the state of Missouri, assuming, of course, it gets through the House and to the governor's desk in the next week?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I think that this is probably the best concrete package that the teams have in our entire region. You know, we have had a lot of conversation over the past year about what the Kansas Star Bonds can do and cannot do. 70% of stadium costs is at least what is claimed. Let me tell you why the Missouri package is better. First of all, 50% covered by the state of Missouri. That's before you're calculating local government jurisdiction investments, which probably, if I'm just doing a rough estimate, can get you above the 25% range or near that. Suggests the Missouri package, just apples to apples, is already superior. Once you then get to the fact that the Star Bond is not backed by a government entity, the state of Kansas isn't issuing bonds. Most likely the city of name your city in Kansas, Gardner, Overland Park, what have you, is not backing those bonds. But on the Missouri side, as you see in our current stadium situations, Jackson County for the current stadiums, the city of Kansas City for its arena, typically would back those. And so you have a cheaper cost of money. You now have a better financial offer. I think that this is a huge step in resolving this conversation that we've had for a long term, but also makes clear that the Missouri side offers are frankly much sweeter, much clearer with jurisdictions that have been doing it for a while.
So do you feel like this deal for the Missouri taxpayer is a good one?
Yes, I think what was said by you at the top of this segment makes that clear. This is funding that is generated at the stadiums themselves, the stadiums and surrounding areas. And so what that tells you then is that we have the fortune of actually getting a chance for people. It's kind of like a user tax. People who are paying for the stadium are actually doing it themselves. Sorry for the loud car in the neighborhood. And so what that suggests for me is that this is the sort of thing that is not general revenue. This is not actually looking to rob Peter to pay Paul from some other revenue source. This is looking at what do those teams generate? How do you actually get that back into the stadium to fund the stadium, and allows us to collect, by the way, good revenues off of those stadiums for many other public purposes. It is good public policy, a great proposal by Governor Kehoe, and I think it's the sort of thing that not only gets the deal done, but gets a deal done fairly for our taxpayers.
If these stadiums, and I'm just going to throw out a round number here, we're generating $50 million in sales tax revenues, and now those revenues are basically being given back to the teams. That is basically a $50 million shortfall, though, for the state, right?
So I would suggest that those revenues are, I wouldn't contest the $50 million. I would suggest that those revenues are split among different jurisdictions. But let's say that you're putting city of Kansas City, state of Missouri, Jackson County, all of that in the same bucket. Yeah, I mean, I think that there is some loss here. Of course, the challenge is for those who are saying, aha, don't support it. You lose it anyway, right? If they all move to Kansas tomorrow, if they move to a different jurisdiction, right, that is all funding that you lose. The reason, of course, that you would invest is the secondary impact you can have in an area. Let's use as an example downtown Kansas City. If the theory is that you're filling up more hotel rooms through the summer months, that you're seeing new economic development for folks trying to buy up more property in the core of the city, opening things and purchasing more things, then you get more secondary benefit. But look, part of the reason we're in this conversation isn't just because either I or Governor Kehoe or anybody is a big fanboy of the Royals or the Chiefs or anyone, although we like them. It is because we are trying to make sure that we can salvage the tax revenues to the fullest extent possible that we might otherwise lose if these teams were to relocate.
Well, yeah, and let's be honest. I've heard Governor Kehoe say the Royals are his favorite American League team. So we know where his loyalties lie. Quinton Lucas is here on KCMO. So let's go back 15 months, Mr. Mayor. We look at April of 2024. Basically, that would have extended the status quo, 3.8 cent sales tax out of Jackson County, split by these two teams for the foreseeable future. If that had passed, there would, as I understand it, at least as I recall the conversations at the time, there would have been no sweet offer like this from the state of Missouri.
Correct.
So now the state of Missouri comes in. So why or do we need a local, whether it's county or city element to any of this based on this deal passing through the state?
I think that's a fair question. Do we need it? Probably not, although I imagine the teams in their negotiations will compare what is being offered by other jurisdictions in our current border war battle and say this is something that is essential to our offer, at least as we see it. But you're right. There is a brand new revenue stream and a substantial one that goes to supporting the stadiums that did not exist in Missouri. Well, frankly, didn't exist a week ago, but certainly when we were thinking about this 14 to 15 months ago. I'm realistic. I think that there will still be that ask from local government jurisdictions. I do think that there will be arm's length negotiation about how much it is and what type of investment we are looking to do. But this does change that world and outlook. I told a woman I worked with, Morgan Saeed, last year when the stadium issues did not pass. I didn't lose confidence that the teams will remain in Missouri. I'm as confident today as I've been at any point throughout. I just thought, it'd be a lot harder, be a pain in the rear a little bit, and I think it would be more costly to the taxpayer. I will admit this as clearly as anyone. Right now, the city of Kansas City in particular gets a darn sweet deal. The city of Kansas City itself does not actually fund beyond a few $1 million a year the stadiums. It's a county collected sales tax. We get earnings taxes, sales taxes off of it. It is a very positive fiscal outlook for the city of Kansas City. If either of those teams were to leave, that is a huge challenge. But even if they were to stay, but in a restructured deal, that presents a challenge. So that's part of what we're evaluating. But I do continue to think the city of Kansas City is vastly better with them present, with them paying earnings taxes, getting certain sales taxes from them than us without.
So you have tried to be creative over the last year or so with different offers to try to entice specifically the Royals to build their new stadium somewhere downtown. And, there were a lot of different opinions, I'm sure you heard, on how valuable and what the backings were on these deals. Are those deals off the table now because of what's been offered by the state?
Not at all. Not at all. I think that what we have continued to say, and we say this, with some level of, I think, honor, integrity, trust, and respect, which is what we were negotiating before, always anticipated that the state of Missouri would be playing an important role. And I'll give this credit to the Royals and the Chiefs. I think when they were having a conversation years ago, there was always an intention that there would be contributions from the city, state, and county in certain situations. I think what we have seen over the past year is that the city and the state are largely able to get a Royals deal done, and or, of course, Clay County in the state of Missouri are able to get one done. But I think that, we will continue to look to have that negotiation. On the Chiefs, and after my last interview with you last week, some people said, it looks like he's given up on the Chiefs. I absolutely haven't. I just recognize the city of Kansas City isn't the landlord for the Chiefs. And most discussions on the Chiefs relate to them staying at the Truman Sports Complex that is owned by Jackson County. That's why I think they remain an important part of that conversation. But having met with them before, the Chiefs, the city is interested in playing a key role to the fullest extent we can and having them stay there, just recognizing that we can incentivize, but we are not the landlord to have them. With the Royals, I am of the view that, frankly, as fast as people are willing to work, we can get a deal done. If it is a day after the governor signs these special session bills, I think the city of Kansas City is ready to get moving. And make that distinct from every local government jurisdiction working on it. We have the bond authorization to be able to handle it. We have handled large debt issues before. Up in Clay County, you never passed that sports commission bill. I still don't know what exactly it was going to do in terms of holding the debt. I think these are things Kansas City can get done tomorrow. And I think this helps us get these deals done, at least one of them for the Royals, by the end of the month.
Could you see a world, and this is just something that I think would make economic sense and political sense for these two teams and the leaders involved, where if the Royals stay in Kansas City, Missouri, and move to a preferred site downtown, they can get a deal with this nice state deal plus something through the city of Kansas City, Missouri, while the Chiefs stay where they're at. They have this new sweetheart deal from the state, and they can actually go to a ballot by themselves on this sales tax extension, cut the sales tax because they don't have to actually share it with the Royals anymore. And they can go to the voter and say, it's just the Chiefs, and we're actually cutting your taxes. I mean, that feels like a political no-brainer to me. Is that a possibility?
I think not only is it a possibility, but it gets by the day ever closer to a likelihood. I think that this is something that is a net positive for the voters in our region. You get a sensible deal worked out in downtown Kansas City. And I know we've gone through all the ruminations and all of that. The beginning of this conversation was the Royals wanting to go downtown because they wanted to generate more butts in the seats, really, and wanted to create more financial opportunities relating to it. And don't get me wrong, you can build a Funco land almost anywhere in the region, all that sort of stuff. I get it. But where do we have a lot of tourist dollars? Where do we have a lot of tourist attention? Where do we have a lot of conventions now? I think the city can get that done, and I think you can get that done without a tax increase for either Kansas City voters, Clay County, Jackson County, any type of voter. And then I think when you look at the Chiefs question, you absolutely have the opportunity now with the state incentive to have a tax cut to Jackson Countyans, but a continuation of something that supports the Truman Sports Complex, and by the way, in so doing, supports Central and Eastern Jackson County, keeps a key regional asset in the approximate areas of Independence, Raytown, even Lee's Summit, Blue Springs, and others. I think it is important for regional balance. It's important for Eastern Jack, and I think it's important for the state of Missouri. I think that, frankly, Governor Kehoe deserves great credit for, I think, bridging a gap in a conversation that was largely frozen in terms of making sure you have responsible deals for the taxpayers, something that gets this all resolved and allows local government jurisdictions and the teams to finish this conversation once and for all fairly to the taxpayers and, of course, the teams themselves.
Mayor Lucas on KCMO. Now, on another note, speaking of sports, of course, the World Cup's coming here next year. Please don't tell me the city's going to be paying people tens of thousands of dollars to fill empty storefronts next summer. Tell me that that's not really going to happen.
Yeah, the headline was weird to me. No, it's a business incentive to actually get businesses opening up in places where there have been challenges in opening up. It is not just saying, hey, put a poster up and a fake piece of jewelry, and we're going to make it look like that we're inhabited. That headline, I didn't actually read the story. Headline, I think, was a bit misleading. Instead, it's saying at 18th and Vine, we have a few, empty spots right now. What can we do to help businesses get started back up? What can we do to help support those businesses long term? And as the guy who was in that committee asking questions on Tuesday, the clear goal in that is to make sure that businesses can not only open there, but stay open for years to come. That's what this is all about. It is not an empty storefront, putting lipstick on a pig type of proposal that I think some of the headlines and the fallout from it all suggested.
Okay, so the plan here then is to try to fill some empty storefronts in certain parts of Kansas City. You mentioned 18th and Vine. But how first off, where does all this stand when it comes to getting through city council? Is it just out of a committee right now and then it goes to a full council vote?
It is out of a committee. It will go to a full council vote today. This is money that was already appropriated in connection with small business support, but it's not empty storefronts. It is actually basically leasing to people right now. The challenge is this. Some areas of the city, we've had restaurants and others fail. Frankly, we've done this in almost every part of the city now. This is saying, all right, do you need some incentive for us to fix up the white box space? Is there a kitchen that needs to be repaired or built out in a space that used to hold a restaurant? That's the sort of thing we're looking to do. It is filling up spaces, not storefronts, and it's actually getting really successful businesses back in them in a way that we do every day of the week. We are talking about an incentive for sports teams right now. This is in many ways no different. It just helps small businesses.
Is it a direct payment to the business for upkeep, or is it the city basically paying for the upkeep on whatever projects need to be improved in these places?
It is the city, likely. Some of the facilities we own, and so those would just be us paying ourselves to improve our own properties in a lot of them, and that's the 18th and Vine discussion. For businesses that would be outside of it, it is kind of an infrastructure support type thing, capital improvement. So ultimately it does go to the business, but they go through an application process. There has to be a very fair and objective review. It has to have a vote on city council. There are a lot of steps to make sure that it's not just corporate welfare to small businesses, although I think many small businessmen listening would say it's about darn time we get it compared to some of the others around who seem to.
All right. Mr. Mayor, thank you very much. Have a great weekend, and we will talk to you next week.
All right, go Chiefs and Royals. We'll see you.
There you go. That's Quinton Lucas on KCMO Talk Radio. He's loving Mike Kehoe this morning. Listen, it would have been unfair had either of these teams left to actually just blame Quinton Lucas, but you know that is how many would have written the story. They would have said, you're the mayor who lost one or both of these two teams. Fair or unfair, that's how it would have gone.
I remember the teams that have left, I blamed the owners, but this would be a unique situation in that they would have crossed the state line.
Yes.
And not left the time zone.
And they would have said, hey, who was the mayor? Oh, it's got to be his fault. And that would not have been a completely
Not
fair
accurate.
characterization. But it would have happened. So Quinton Lucas might even put up a Mike Kehoe 2028 sign in his front yard one day because he bailed them out in a big way.
In this house, we believe. Mike Kehoe.
913-4087-957. The reaction from you, the breaking news this morning, the state of Missouri passing a bill in the early morning hours to help keep the Chiefs and the Royals in the state of Missouri.
Stream Mundo in the morning on the KCMO Talk Radio app.
All right, very fair question on the text line here, 913-408-7957. Breaking news in the overnight hours, the Missouri Senate, which was the biggest hurdle to still clear, has passed what they have called the Show Me Sports Investment Act, basically allowing the Chiefs and the Royals to stay in Missouri, and this bill would pay up to 50% of the cost of a new or renovated stadium. And this obviously is a huge hurdle that was cleared, probably the biggest hurdle left to clear to keeping these two teams in the Show Me State. So, text line question. Pete, you keep saying it would be smart to have the Chiefs go on the ballot and talk about a tax cut to Jackson County voters if they go on the ballot for less than 3/8 of a cent sales tax because they get this big pot of money now from the state of Missouri. But it's not a tax cut because the current tax is expiring. And then theoretically, come 2031, we would pay no taxes for the stadium, correct? If it is, then wouldn't what you're presenting be deceptive politics? I'm just asking. Absolutely. You are absolutely right. That texter is spot on. But politics is oftentimes deceptive, right? One of the main reasons that these two teams lost the vote last year was because people were fed up with their taxes. They were done with how Jackson County had mismanaged the property tax crisis. And the problem for a lot of the pretty people involved in this process with the two teams last year was that they didn't understand the pain of the average Jackson County resident and voter. And the only way for the Jackson County voter to tell certain people, from Frank White to the legislature to Gail McCann Beatty, the only way that they could really tell these people to go pound sand last year was to vote no on this stadium deal and the sales tax extension, whether that was fair or not. So that's where these two teams got caught between a rock and a hard place. Wasn't entirely fair, but that's how it went down. So I'm just saying from a political optics perspective, the thing the Chiefs can do is if the Royals can build their stadium now with just the state and the city of Kansas City, Missouri, it will be the Chiefs who, if they want some local funding from Jackson County, they should cut this sales tax at least in half and say, we're going to cut your taxes in Jackson County. And you know what? Vote for us. We're going to stay at the Truman Sports Complex. We're going to big up Arrowhead Stadium. We're going to make some renovations. And they can do that because of what the state of the Missouri did early this morning. That's how this can play out.
There's a marketing adage, sell the sizzle. You're not selling the steak. You're selling the sizzle, like it used to come out at Jess and Jim's, hot on the plate. And you're like, wow, look at that. That's where they failed. They were selling the stadium and not the sizzle. There was no plan, no package to go, ooh, ah, at. You're just selling me concrete going, I don't know that we need it.
Yep. And now they've got a chance to right their wrongs and sell that sizzle. News in a minute, 913-408-7957. We keep it going on a breaking news Thursday morning on KCMO. We are getting your reaction all morning long to the breaking news here on KCMO Talk Radio. While we were all fast asleep, or at least most of us were fast asleep, the state of Missouri passed in the Senate a 19-13 vote. They needed 18 to pass it. They got 19 votes for Senate Bill 3, known as the Show Me Sports Investment Act, helping professional sports teams pay off construction bonds with tax dollars generated at and around the stadiums. So that's the big breaking news this morning. And my major takeaway, the teams will stay. I think Kansas is done. And if I'm Kansas and these teams have the balls to come back to me in the next 3 weeks and say, hey, just to be safe, could you extend the star bond offer another 3 weeks? If you have any self-respect in Kansas, you will say no. That would be absolutely insane. The only reason to do that at this point in Kansas, the only way you could possibly do that in Kansas is if you've got something beyond what you've currently gotten from these two teams, which so far is really not much outside of like, so you're saying there's a chance. That's where Kansas has been for the better part of 12 months. No one's seen anything when it comes to where these stadiums would go in Kansas. I mean, there's some obvious choices and rumors that are out there. No one knows what a theoretical star bond district would look like in Kansas. There's no public proposal out there. I mean, at this point, if you're the state of Kansas, right, you put your best foot forward, you made an offer, you had a deal on the table, right? I mean, you did what you thought you needed to do. And then at the last minute here, up against this relatively made-up deadline of June 30th, which was there just because that's when the star bond offer ended in Kansas, Missouri, led by Governor Mike Kehoe, got this offer done. As Quinton Lucas said last hour, it is a better offer, right? Because a lot of what Missouri has on the table is backed by municipalities, counties, and the state. The star bond deal doesn't do that. That was always the thing that made the star bond offer a much riskier deal. Then you had to figure out how big does this star bond district have to be to generate the sales tax revenues to make this a wise investment to pay off the bonds. It was always an overlooked part of this story that I thought never got enough attention. But now, listen, if these two teams were serious about Kansas at all, if they still are serious about Kansas after this deal in Missouri gets done, then you know what? Hold them to their own deadline. The teams have said, most notably the Royals have said, our deadline's the end of June. Do not let them extend this deadline. They have missed every one of their own deadlines going back 2.5, 3 years now. The only way that this can continues to get kicked down the road is if the state of Kansas allows it to get kicked down the road. And all they would be doing would be allowing themselves to get kicked right in the face. That's it. 913-408-7957. Linda is in Liberty. Go ahead, Linda. You're on KCMO. Good morning.
Good morning. You talk about Jackson County maybe getting a tax cut. What about the rest of us counties around here? I'm in Clay County. What's happened? Are the players going to kick in some money? How about the owners? Some of us are retired, living on Social Security and maybe whatever we've saved. I just think people who live in big houses and, have all the money to pay, $200 to park, really, can't the players afford to kick in a whole bunch of money? If they want a big, grand stadium, let them pay for it. Some people around here are concerned about losing their homes because of utilities and everything else that has gone up. People that are living in million-dollar houses, making millions of dollars contracts for several years, they all ought to be able to chip in a little bit and make whatever fancy stadium they want. Some of us just want to be able to pay our utilities, buy food, take care of our families.
Linda, listen, you're not alone in that sentiment, and that sentiment crosses all political party lines, and that's part of the reason the vote failed last year in Jackson County. Listen, it's more on the owners. I wouldn't say it's on Travis Kelce to build anybody a stadium or Patrick Mahomes. They're doing their part. They're doing what they're employed to do. But you're right to bring up, and this was the argument on both sides of the political aisle in Jeff City, is this just a basically bailout for billionaire owners? And that's why this was a fairly contentious battle down there. So you're not alone in that sentiment, Linda. I know there's a lot of people out there who feel the same way as you do right now.
But I asked the question, is this tax cut going to go for Clay, Platte, the other counties around?
Well, what do you mean? What tax cut?
Well, you said maybe Jackson County would get a tax cut. You said that a couple of times.
Yeah, well, this is a unique sales tax right now that exists in Jackson County that is 3/8 of a cent that funds the Truman Sports Complex and the upkeep and things like that. So, no, there wouldn't be, but that's because Clay County does not have this 3/8 cent sales tax that currently exists in Jackson.
But I'm sure that we'll end up getting another tax increase any time. Anyway, just my opinion.
Yeah, well, listen, who knows? Clay County might be in the mix, Linda. You might be voting on a tax for the Royals if they end up in North Kansas City. That's potentially part of the equation.
I know.
So, then clearly, thank you, Linda. We know how Linda would vote on that potential sales tax in Clay County. So I get it. That's why this stuff is fairly controversial still. And it's not unique to one side of the political aisle. Listen, when people have been just beaten, think about the last 5 years in this country. It's one of the reasons Donald Trump's in the White House right now, because of cost of living. Inflation, 20% the last bunch of years, right? You've got that as step number one. The last bunch of years, right? You've got that as step number one. You've got, a lot of other issues when it comes to what's happened to property taxes. You've got issues like what has happened. Go ahead, John. What's going on?
So this is more than a sports story is kind of what you're saying, huh?
Correct.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You've got a lot of things that people have been screwed by over the last few years. Grocery prices, home prices, property taxes, all this stuff has gone up. And people don't really feel like they have a say in any of it right now. So what do? They take out their frustrations where they can. Last April, it was the Chiefs and the Royals. Last November, it was Donald Trump. All this stuff does weave into each other in some way. And that's where you get the frustrations like what Linda's just voicing right there. And Scott Fawn said last hour on the show that there will be Republicans who voted for this who will be primaried, and one of those attacks will be they voted for bailouts for billionaires. So it was not a popular vote in Missouri. He alluded to Mike Kehoe maybe getting a primary in 2028, and they'll use this against him. From what I'm hearing, he's probably not wrong. And it may come from somebody inside of his inner circle, as far as I can tell, based on some of the rumors I'm hearing. So there is understandable frustration. But we got to this point in part of how things went down last year with the vote, in part of how this Kansas Star Bond offer came to be last year. And the Missouri legislature, some of the powers that be, felt a lot of pressure because of this. And that's why this ultimately got done in the early morning hours. 913-408-7957. That's how you join us here on KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM. We're always streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. That is also the text line as well. On the text line, Pete, I'm with Linda. This is stunning. A special session was called for billion-dollar sports teams while people lose their houses because they can't pay their bleeping property taxes. Well, Joe Nicola, an independent state senator, was trying to get his property tax bill done. And it didn't happen last night. He was lobbying for it, but it didn't happen last night. They did pass two other bills in Missouri last night. And one of them was basically tornado relief for St. Louis, and then the other one was infrastructure funding for some key projects around the state of Missouri. And that includes an MU cancer reactor, a new mental health hospital here in Kansas City, and the assurance that no stadium project moves forward without local support. So that is something that Senate Democrats wanted. And that's why that's this, unique coalition of Republicans and Democrats to get this stadium funding across the finish line in the early morning hours. Mark Falter's going to be here on what should be a busy next couple of days when it comes to the markets. That's at 8:35 on KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM, and always streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. Well, as you're getting ready for maybe a big graduation coming up this weekend, I know the parties are happening in the weeks ahead. What about that big engagement right around the corner? You've been dragging your feet on that. There is one place that you need to go, and that would be Diamonds Direct. They're located over at 119th and Row, and you will get the white glove service from Angie and her team. You will. I mean, people think that she's going to walk in there, Diamonds Direct, it's some kind of big warehouse place. No. That's not what it is. They'll offer you a glass of champagne when you walk in. They got an area for the kids to play if you need that as well to get some, quiet time, shall we say. They have a 110% lifetime upgrade guarantee as well. So that means when you are ready to upgrade your diamond, you will get 110% of your original purchase price towards your new selection. And that sets them apart from the competitors. Also, lifetime services, they're always free. Whatever you need, no strings attached. They will take care of it over at Diamonds Direct. So let Angie and her team take great care of you like they have for me over the years at Diamonds Direct. Located at 119th and Row, or start shopping at diamondsdirect.com.
On Thursday's Guy Benson Show from California, the great Katie Pavlich will be here on Political News of the Day. Congressman Kevin Kiley of California coming up at 2 o'clock on KCMO.
Pete, are you sure this bill, this is on the text line, are you sure this bill from the overnight hours for the Chiefs and the Royals is really across the finish line? What if the House says no, or the local vote that is undoubtedly coming says, nah, we're good? What happens then? Well, first off, the biggest hurdle was the Missouri State Senate. The House already passed this bill. The House passed a bill like this at the end of session about 3 weeks ago in Missouri. The bill then went to the Senate, and the Senate basically didn't take it up. So it's just the same bill, basically, the House already passed, going back to the House. It's going to get through on the House. The biggest hurdle that was left was the state Senate, and it got done. Now, whether or not there is a local element and how much local support does this have to have, whether it's a Royal Stadium or a Chief Stadium, I don't know. I mean, I'm looking at the bill right now, Senate Bill 3, and I've gone through it all, and it's not clear to me how you define local support. Is it, as Quinton Lucas said last hour, the city of Kansas City, Missouri, also bonding something out for a Royal Stadium? Or is it a vote of the people in Kansas City, Missouri? For the Chiefs, is it a vote of Jackson County residents, or is there something Jackson County can do without the taxpayers' input? I don't know what exactly that means and how you define it's got to have local support. And I've read through the Show Me Sports Investment Act, and that's not obvious to me either. But you know and I know that now that this offer is on the table from the state of Missouri, it feels like all but a done deal. They are going to stay on the Missouri side of the state line. Also on the text line, Pete, we can't build a jail, but we have money for the Chiefs. That's a little disingenuous. It's very disingenuous, actually. Very disingenuous. We couldn't build a jail because we had feckless politicians who bought into the idea of defund the police for the last half a decade and were completely incompetent on the issue. Kansas City, Missouri shut down its jail over 10 years ago now. They didn't have a plan in place to replace that jail. They thought they could maybe latch onto the new Jackson County jail. Jackson County more or less told them to pound sand, so now they got to start building their own jail, which they're doing in the next 24 months or so. So I get the sentiment, but that's completely irrelevant to this story, John.
Yeah, part of that wrinkle was that Kansas City, for a period of time, leased jail from Jackson County, and then they said, oh, no, we don't have room for you guys anymore. We're getting a new place and don't have any room for you there either.
Yes.
So that's another part of the conflict.
Yes, exactly right. I'm glad you brought that up because I understand the frustrations being like, we don't have a jail, but, Chiefs, Royals. I get it, but they're completely different deals.
And the Jackson County Jail is being built on their 40 highway, so that's what's going on there.
And for years, Quinton Lucas wanted the city to basically share that jail, and because of the Frank White Quinton Lucas beef, which Quinton Lucas swears is not really there, but we all know is there. They never came to a deal.
Well, I think the city even wanted to get some land adjacent to that, and I don't think they're having any part of that. It's the latest wrinkles, so they're looking for all kinds of options at KCMO right now.
I almost called him Frank Lucas from American Gangster.
Yeah, whoops.
I don't know who would be more offended, Quinton Lucas or Frank White?
Or Frank Lucas.
Or Frank Lucas. Or Denzel Washington. Oh, man. I was like, wait, did I almost say Frank? I can't believe I haven't actually made that mistake before. Frank Lucas is also, I think he's a congressman down in Oklahoma who was representative for the western part of Oklahoma when I was down there. I think, is he still down there? He's still the guy. Oh, my goodness. Boy, do we need term limits for these guys. Frank Lucas has been the congressman for the 3rd District of Oklahoma since 2003. Can't these guys go get a real job at some point? My gosh. I mean, total sidebar here. But I remember covering Frank Lucas in Oklahoma 15 years ago. He's still there. Hey, get out of Congress. Go into the real world, buddy. Get a real job. It's enough. Enough.
You mustard move.
Jeez. Never thought I'd be having a Frank Lucas conversation this morning, but here we are at 8:26 on a news-breaking Thursday morning in Kansas City. The markets are getting set to open up here in a couple of minutes. We have unemployment numbers coming up tomorrow. We have a market that more or less feels like it's kind of in this holding pattern. We got the big bounce back from the lows in April, right? But the question now is, what does this look like going forward? We have still tariffs to come. We have the big, beautiful bill that still needs to pass. We believe it's going to pass, but there's a lot of infighting right now on the Republican side. So what does all this look like? And how can the average investor and the average person who is maybe approaching retirement react to what's going on? Mark Falter on that and more next.
Call Mundo 913-408-7957. Now on 95.7 FM.
Stock market has opened up, and as has been the case, it feels like lately, it has been fairly status quo as we kind of wait to see what the future economic numbers look like, how the tariffs play out, and everything else. But, of course, got a big bounce back after the lows of early April. Mark Falter is here, Retirement Income Hour. You hear him Saturday and Sunday mornings at 9 o'clock, Mid-America Wealth Advisors here in Kansas City. All right, Mark, we've had the big bounce back, but what do you think the markets are sitting there and waiting on right now?
Oh, they're waiting on to see how things go in Switzerland with China and Trump. You ever notice how they always go to Switzerland?
Yeah.
I think Trump needs to go to China. The problem is if he goes to China, we may not get him back.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
We'll find him on YouTube.
Yeah.
Seriously. Some video. Yeah, don't go to China. But in all seriousness, we're waiting on how things go in Switzerland with the talks. It really has come down too, which is no surprise. China and the United States. That's what it's all coming down to. And I think one thing the United States needs to learn out of this is that we need to send manufacturing and everything that we do on planet Earth to some other place in addition to China, not besides, but in addition to, and spread because it's just too risky, Yeah.
So what about you? I mean, we've been through this roller coaster last couple of months, and you've gained plenty of warning to people. You've gained plenty of warning to people entering the Trump administration. Hey, if you're approaching retirement, you had a good run in the markets, but Trump's here to kind of shake things up a little bit. He's got a long-term vision that may include some risk here, so might be time to take something off the table. Where are you at right now and where these next, let's say, 12, 18, 24 months go?
Well, to let people know that I put my money where my mouth is, I sold Bitcoin at $111 a share, $111,000 a share, and it's gone down every day since. That was me personally. We don't do much of that for our clients. We just kind of give them some help in certain areas. And I unloaded a fair amount of equity holdings also, because this is going to be a volatile year. And if you are getting close to retirement or in retirement, this would be a great time to reallocate because you're at a high. I mean, what's crazy is if you go back 3 or 4 months, we were at a pretty good low. And then it came back up. It's like, guys, you've been handed this now 3 times. I can't guarantee you there's another one coming, because if things end badly in Switzerland, stock market's going to feel it. And I would arguably say if things went bad enough, I think we could see a 20-30% dip. And people thought, that couldn't happen. You watch. And but if things go well, I think we're going to have a very neutral year. I don't think we're going to see a super gain year. Jamie Dimon, is very vocal about economic risks and even in the treasury market. I just think there's a lot of risk out there. Now, for the young person, 25, 30 years old, man, now's a great time to be investing because the market's all over the place. You're catching it on a downswing. So yeah, comes back to the basics. Just get good at the basics.
So, I mean, you look at the S&P, and this is, when the sky was falling and people were like, I can't retire anymore. It's like, well, if you listen to Mark Falter, you would have been smart about this back in March and April. But we bounced back to the point where the S&P 500 is up 11.5% from 1 year ago today. It is up year to date, and the same fear mongers are nowhere to be found. So I find that interesting, but you're right. It could be a rocky road ahead. We know what we are in for with this president and some of the things he's trying to do that may have some short-term pain, but hopefully will have some long-term gain. So what do you say then to the younger investor? Do you still just keep basically putting into your 401k and your Roth IRAs and things like that and just close your eyes because you got a lot of headway here and runway to work with?
Yeah, they absolutely should not be listening because it's never a bad time to invest as a younger person because time mitigates everything. And you got lots of it. What was my saying I came up with accidentally on this week's show? My coach told me to write it down. That is when you have a lot of time and very little money, you need to go S&P. When you have a lot of money and very little time, you need to go income. And that's just that should be practiced by everybody. Harry Markowitz was writing about this back in the 1950s with modern portfolio theory. For some reason, I do not know why retirees 73 and 74 years old take growth into retirement and then sell shares. You're risking the potential. If you'd have done that in 2000 to 2010 and taken out $40,000 a year out of $1 million, you'd have turned $1 million into $378,000 in 10 years. So you can't rely on that 4% cash flow rule unless you're getting it out of dividends instead of out of selling them shares.
Yeah, that's a good point. So what about what's going on with the bond market? That right now has been also a dicey place when you look at the 10-year Treasury, the $36 trillion in debt we find ourselves in right now. When I think a lot of people hear about that, their eyes start to glaze over. They can't figure out how that relates to them, the everyday average investor. How would you explain that?
So we came out of it. As a matter of fact, I've had a conversation about this very thing in the last 2 days, twice, I think, with clients, because they have some bonds that were sold to them back in 2018, 2019. The prices of said bonds went down because the Fed raised rates. When rates go up, bond prices fall. Because you're taking low interest rate bonds into a higher interest rate environment, and somebody's like, why would I want that 2% bond from you when I can go get one brand new for 5%? I don't want it. So the price goes down. The thing people have to remember, at least with our portfolios, is that there is a maturity date and it has to come back to par. And then I have a pilot behind the scenes, our analyst, that's watching to make sure that crazy thing doesn't go bankrupt, and that's his job. And so everything we've got them in, we vetted them very strongly, but they got to remember they got a par value. When they go into a bond fund, they don't have a par value. They don't have a guaranteed interest. They don't have a maturity date. They lose all that. I think advisors sell that because it's easier. But so the bond, now what's going to happen is it looks like we're going to have a simulated format of inflation, meaning that it's not real inflation, it's just higher prices, because if we go to task with China, prices are going to go up. And that's what China knows, because they control pricing of everything. And because we've let all of our manufacturing go to one place on earth that hates us. And so prices go up, the Fed's going to potentially lower rates. If they lower rates, and that will cause bond prices to go back up again. And that's yet to be seen. Well, I think there's a high probability of that happening. But bottom line is people have to remember, if you own a bond, you've got a maturity date and a par value it's got to come back to. Even though it's lower than its par value, it's got to come back to it.
That's a good point. So what about tomorrow? We've got employment numbers coming out, and so far, the just general economic data has exceeded the expectations. What are you expecting tomorrow, and how the markets could react to it?
Yeah, the market's kind of expecting, 126,000, I think, new jobs, 4.2% unemployment, and could be lower, than that due to tariffs and job cuts and things like that. I would say probably more like 114,000. We're going to have to wait and see. It really hasn't been tremendously great the last time it came in.
What about Jamie Dimon? He's the CEO of JP Morgan. He's been pretty vocal, especially about this debt that we, of course, are racking up by about $2 trillion a year at this point. This is not a guy who has been very political or vocal on this stuff for the last few years, but he's starting to speak out. I think it's refreshing. What do you make of what he's saying?
Yeah, he's concerned. I mean, he's concerned about economic risks because let's put it this way. If we're still talking tariffs in 2 years, we're going to have a problem, because now you got to be very careful. I got to be very careful when I say this. If you go back to the Great Depression, tariffs were involved in that. However, you cannot say, like one of my advisors, oh, yeah, tariffs were the reason for the Depression. No, there was a lot of things that were the reason for the Depression. One is we didn't have a Securities Exchange Commission, and it was anything goes when the whistle blows. But tariffs were part of it. And so it's kind of like a steroid shot. Get in, get done, get out. Don't be taking steroids every week, because if we're still talking about this in 2 years, that's going to be an issue. And I think that's what he's concerned about, because it always comes with some economic risks, and we're seeing that with the market reacting.
But what if people here's the thing. A lot of people around the administration, the Peter Navarros of the world, will say, well, that's just, the big banking, corporate, globalist guys who are simply just worried about their bottom line, and we're trying to reset this economy for basically Main Street. What would you say to that?
Yeah, yeah, that I see their point, but there's still going to be some economic risks involved. Even if the big guys are resetting it for Main Street, the thing I think people got to remember, the big guys make money when the market dips. And I have always been a conspiracy theorist a little bit in that they don't mind when it dips. Do they manufacture them occasionally? I don't think that's out of the question, and because they make money on it, on a dip, because they got money to lose, and they're truly in it for the long haul.
Mm-hmm. Well, it is going to be an interesting next few weeks. Mark Valter, we appreciate you, my friend, and we will do this again very soon. Thanks so much. And very soon. Thanks so much.
Hey, appreciate it, man. Thanks.
There you go. Mark Valter, Retirement Income Hour, Saturday and Sunday mornings at 9 o'clock right here on KCMO Talk Radio, Mid-America Wealth Advisors. Curtis Gregory will join us at 9 o'clock. He is the Missouri State Senator who sponsored the bill that got through for the Chiefs and the Royals in the early morning hours. He represents parts of Clay County, Ray County, Lafayette County. So he's, I guess you could call him technically a Northland senator who will join us, who was instrumental in getting that bill passed at 9:05 on KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM. We still have time for you this morning at 913-408-7957. Now, speaking of the national politics, the travel ban that was put in place by President Trump last night. Who does it include and why? We'll tell you next. All right, if you are someone who is a small or medium-sized business and you're like, okay, I hear Pete talk about this AI stuff, but I really don't understand it. My friends at Centric can help you out and take care of you today with basically a process that is not intended to replace anybody, but just make your business more efficient. That's what it's about. And you can learn about how AI and automation is happening right now and how it can work for you. Their AI solutions help you work smarter, reduce your costs. The stuff is not nearly as expensive as some people perceive it to be, and uncover new opportunities while just fitting seamlessly into your existing operations. Centric has been training the technology workforce here in Kansas City for 2 decades. They're located right up the road off State Line Road. And all you have to do right now is go to centric.com/AI. That's Centric, CENTRIQ.com/AI. Reach out to them. Get the ball rolling because your competitors are. Centric.com/AI.
Hey, it's Kevin Keatsman. Stick around. I'm coming up at 10 o'clock right after Pete Mundo on KCMO 95.7 FM.
Whoa, some just brief breaking news here. Pete Thamel, ESPN reporter, sharing here that my alma mater, Villanova football, is leaving the CAA for the Patriot League, which will be effective in 2026. Fine, you guys can say it.
Nobody cares.
It's fine. It's totally fine.
I'm trying to think. There was one Chiefs player that was from Villanova. I can't think of his name right.
Yes, there was. They had he was a backup, I believe. On one of the, I think it was a defensive lineman.
Was it Tano Passanio?
I don't know.
I think it was.
I don't know. But either way, I just saw that from Pete Thamel here on X. Now, some breaking news last night. The President of the United States announcing travel bans. Here we go.
Very simply, we cannot have open migration from any country where we cannot safely and reliably vet and screen those who seek to enter the United States. That is why today I am signing a new executive order placing travel restrictions on countries including Yemen, Somalia, Haiti, Libya, and numerous others. The strength of the restrictions we're applying depends on the severity of the threat posed. The list is subject to revision based on whether material improvements are made, and likewise, new countries can be added as threats emerge around the world. But we will not allow people to enter our country who wish to do us harm, and nothing will stop us from keeping America safe. Thank you very much.
There you go. There you go. That's my man right there. I know. People are going to try to treat this like it's 2017. Remember when Trump did travel bans back in 2017 and the media set up shop at like LAX and JFK and they had all these videos of, kind of chaos at the airports and it was like, who's allowed in? Who can't go? Oh my gosh, this is crazy policy. It's a different world. First off, if there was ever a doubt, everyone now knows the media is just totally full of it, completely biased, and they lose a little bit more of whatever respect they had left every single day. Also, what's changed since 8 years ago? Well, the last guy that showed up here in the White House let upwards of 20 million people into the country. So
what are we talking about?
The sentiment on the issue of immigration has changed dramatically over the last 4 years because of the policies of Joe Biden. Trump's immigration policies have actually been his most popular policies during his first 5 months in office. So I'm guessing we're going to have a lot of hysteria starting this morning around Trump travel bans circa 2017, but it's not going to work. It's not. The ban will fully restrict entry of nationals from these countries, and you heard Trump mention some of them: Afghanistan, Chad, Burma, Congo, Haiti, Iran, Somalia, Sudan, Yemen. What do they all have in common? Well, I'll use the president's own words from a few years ago. Let's be honest. They're asshole countries. No, don't worry, Mark. You don't have to hit the dump button on me there, okay? Like, we cannot sit here and say with certainty who's coming in. Now, let's also be clear. The proclamation includes exceptions for lawful permanent residents, existing visa holders, and certain visa categories and individuals whose entry serves U.S. national interest. So it's not even really a travel ban. It's more of a travel ban for people who we can't confirm what their intentions are when they come to the country, right? That's really who it's for. If you got a visa, if you're a resident, if you are part of certain visa categories, you're fine. You're good. And I don't think that this is, frankly, anywhere near as controversial as some people are going to turn it into. Ashley's in Kansas City. Go ahead, Ashley. You're on KCMO.
Hello. I was married into a family that was from Eritrea, one of these countries that is on the banned list. My ex-father-in-law came here in the early 70s. He got his citizenship. He has dual citizenship. He sponsored his sister and brother-in-law and several family members to come here. They have gotten their citizenship. They are very, very proud Americans. My ex-father-in-law even has his pilot license, owns a fairly good-sized company here in town. I have spoken with them about immigration policies, and I have no problem speaking for them. I will speak to them today about this. They want to do everything they can to protect this country. There are a couple of my ex-husband's cousins who have actually renounced their citizenship in Eritrea because of some of the policies that go on there and the lack of safety. Eritrea is a third world country. I have been there. I was there in 2007. I am so glad that I got that experience, but it used to be part of Ethiopia until 1994. The kids that we saw in the 80s with the distended stomachs, those were Eritrean kids. Those weren't they were part of Ethiopia, but those were from the Eritrean side. Eritrea, the good Eritreans are doing everything that they can to prop up their economy and to be good citizens of the world. The problem is they can't get a foothold in their own country to control what's going on. It is a horrible situation for those who love their country and for those who want to be good people because they're being overrun by the bad.
Thank you very much for that, Ashley. We greatly appreciate it.
Goodbye.
That's a great call. Yeah, Eritrea is in Eastern Africa, borders Ethiopia and Sudan. So I'm sure that there's a woke white Karen in Prairie Village who's very upset with Ashley. But you know what? You got it there from the source. Proud Americans. And that's the thing. If you're a proud American, no matter where you came from, what your background is, this feels like something that is very easy to support. Curtis Gregory is going to join us, a Northland State Senator who led the way on the Show Me Sports Investment Act that passed in the early morning hours. And he will join us on how this deal got done in the Missouri State Senate for the Chiefs and the Royals coming up next. About 2 a.m. this morning, the vote passed the Missouri Senate. Show Me Sports Investment Act, and this bill would pay for up to 50% of the cost of a new or renovated stadium for the Chiefs and the Royals. And the bill was sponsored by Northland State Senator Curtis Gregory, who is now joining us on KCMO. Curtis, good morning. Great to have you on the show. How did this thing get done in the early morning hours?
Oh, there was a lot of people working behind the scenes to try and make it happen. There's no way in the world that I can take all the credit for getting it done. We were able to provide some property tax relief for some people, some income tax relief for people that are dealing with tornadoes and had to pay insurance deductibles. Senator Huff on the spending and appropriations bill and money for tornado victims in St. Louis, and Senator Jason Bean down in the Boot Heel had a piece that would allow some housing assistance money to flow a lot quicker into those tornado damaged areas. So there was a lot of people helping to work to get this done. And I'd also be remiss if I didn't also mention Senator Maggie Nirenberg in the 17th in Clay County that I share with. She helped a lot, and Senator Barbara Washington and helped getting all this done.
So you mentioned there property tax relief. What is that in reference to? Because I know there was a big push to get Jackson County property tax relief as a part of this special session. And of course, that didn't come to fruition. So what is the property tax relief part of this?
So that was one of those pieces of a puzzle that, unfortunately we weren't able to get every single county in the state. But there was I think 97 of 114 counties are getting, one of two things, either getting it's going to be able to go on the ballot for a 5% cap, or CPI, whichever is greater, or a freeze altogether, or you didn't get included at all. And for the 21st district, I consider myself the junior senator from for Clay County. As the 17th makes up 67% of Clay County. And so pretty much any of the counties where there's Democrat strongholds, they had the choice, or whatever senator had the most of that county had the choice in kind of what happened there. That's just one of the unfortunate things in the negotiations. So I wasn't able to bring that to Clay County, but I worked.
What about like Jackson? Like what counties are going to be part of this property tax proposal in our area? Like, is Jackson involved or no?
Jackson is not listening area for you guys. I'm not familiar with, Lafayette County, Ray County, Platte County. I don't recall if Buchanan got thrown in or not. I know Platte did. Cass did. Bates did. I think that covers you guys.
But Clay and Jackson did not.
They did not.
Now, why is that?
So for the Democrat senators control larger portions of those counties.
And they did not. Okay. Gotcha. So the Democrat senators that did not want to basically give the local jurisdictions or the counties the option to potentially have this cap on property taxes.
To go on the ballot. That is
to go
correct.
on the ballot.
So it's one of those, just the way it happened. Unfortunate, but I know it sounds like there's a push already that I've read about on Facebook at the county level in Clay County of some way to potentially offset some tax relief at the county level themselves if the Royals were to come north, because there's certainly going to be an economic boon from that. So it sounds like the leaders there in Clay County have already been forward thinking on something to do for that.
Gotcha. Okay. Curtis Gregory is here. He is the one who was the sponsor of this Show Me Sports Investment Act that passed in the early morning hours. He represents parts of the Northland. He's on KCMO Talk Radio. So this bill that got done by one vote, paying for up to 50% of the cost of a new or renovated stadium for the Chiefs and or the Royals. which we expect both of them, of course, to go ahead with. How do you sell this one, and why is this a win for the taxpayer in Missouri?
Pete, it's easy. When I first got back from session, when actual legitimate session ended, I had people ask about it, and it was the guy running the parts counter at my local John Deere dealership, and I was getting some parts for my tractor, and I said, Mark, you got to understand, the money that you send to the state out of your paycheck is not paying for this stadium. But if you go to a game and buy a ticket and buy a beer and a Mahomes jersey, those tax dollars is what's going towards this. And he went, oh, well, that sounds like a pretty good idea. So that is what I want to emphasize the most. It is not the tax dollars collected out of your paycheck, I guess, unless you work for the Royals or the Chiefs that are helping pay for it. It's the tax dollars that we're getting off of Joe Burrow when he plays in Kansas City, or Josh Allen, or when Taylor Swift has a concert, or anything that happens at Arrowhead or Kauffman Stadium. It's those tax dollars that we're going to use through a bonding program that's up to 30 years and it has to be a $500 million project and up to 50% of the cost of a stadium.
But is it fair to say, when Joe Burrow, to use your example, came to Kansas City, he would pay some taxes, obviously, in his massive salary, and those taxes would theoretically go somewhere else, and now they're going back to the team for renovations. That is a fair way to interpret this as well, right?
That is a fair way to interpret that, Pete. And is what I will say.
So if that's the case, sorry, go ahead.
That is the case.
Okay.
That is the case. But the argument also with this, Pete, is if the teams were to go to Kansas, the tax dollars weren't going to be here also.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
The fiscal note associated with this would have been the same had they gone to Kansas or had they stayed in Missouri.
So it's fair to say you guys took the Kansas offer pretty seriously. You thought that was a real deal where they could have left for Kansas.
It was a very real deal. You look no further than the Royals ownership, someone in their ownership buying land down or buying the mortgage option. I talked with the Chiefs group, and they were had very serious land site discussions and looking at it. The lobbyist I spoke with on behalf of the Chiefs, he said, I kind of thought the Kansas offer stood zero chance for 7 or 8 months. And then Chiefs ownership started looking at sites, and he goes, that's when I went, whoa, this could actually move to Kansas. And so I wanted to do everything. I wanted to have a legitimate offer on the table. And Pete, honestly, right now, we don't know 100% the teams are going to stay. But I feel like they want to be in the state of Missouri.
Yeah. But so you don't know, of course, if they're going to stay, but it cleared the biggest hurdle last night or this morning, which was, of course, the state Senate in Missouri. And do you feel like now there's an overwhelming likelihood that they do end up staying?
I cannot speak for the teams. I think we've got to get it. And I can't speak for the House of Representatives also. They're their own legislative chamber.
Mm-hmm.
But I think if they get this passed and the governor signs it, I feel very confident that both teams stay. Again, I'm not going to guarantee it because there's still a very legitimate offer on the table from the state of Kansas to pay for up to 70% of the cost of a new stadium. But I feel like if the teams wanted to go to Kansas, they would have already signed the dotted line and moved to Kansas.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
And that
So what about then, does there need to be, because I saw a statement from the Senate Democrats, and they said here that basically they got what they wanted, that the assurance that no stadium project moves forward without local support. How do we define local support? Does there need to be a sales tax element to this for the states or for the teams to use the state monies? Or does it just need to be maybe a local bonding offer from a municipality like Kansas City, Missouri, or, Clay County? What do we mean when Senate Democrats say there has to be local support for any stadium project to move forward?
Well, it's interesting that it's worded that way because that was part of the original bill draft from the governor's office and Department of Economic Development. So that wasn't anything that got added at any point in the process. That was the way that it was drafted in its initial form. Sufficient local contribution is how it's worded, because what is sufficient in Jackson County may not be sufficient in Clay County, but also might not be sufficient in St. Louis County, because this program also does fit the St. Louis Cardinals.
Mm-hmm.
And so we don't want to box any one thing in, make it site specific to potentially one county. A 1 cent sales tax in one county might be where it needs to be to sufficient, but it might be way too much in another county. So they just use sufficient. So that could be on a county by county basis.
But does it have to be a sales tax or no? Like, do the Royals need a sales tax element to utilize this, or can they just cut a deal with Kansas City, Missouri on some extra bonding?
That's a great question. As far as I know, it just says however I phrased that earlier. Sorry, I'm a little on the tired side.
Oh, it's fine.
The local sufficient local contribution.
Okay,
is how that was put there.
So it's a gray area. It's just kind of a gray area right now.
It's about gray area because, like I said, when we asked that question did come up in committee, and Director Hadaway with Department of Economic Development, she said we did not want to make this site specific by saying this is what it has to be. As in terms of a local sufficient effort.
Gotcha. Okay. Last thing I have for you, Curtis Gregory. You said yesterday that the Royals had heard from Nashville and Salt Lake City. What information can you share on those conversations and what they looked like in recent weeks?
So that was brand new information to me that had come to me from a couple of different sources in Clay County. I think Representative Hurlburt is one that actually had mentioned that in a text message. I know Nashville is looking extremely hard to get a Major League Baseball team. I think they're ripe for one. I don't know what the offer looks like. I didn't have a chance to fully verify it, so I'm trusting that Representative Hurlburt had good information. But as what I do know for fact is that Salt Lake City has put together a study group to see what do we have to do, what do we have to offer to get an MLB team in Salt Lake City, Utah. And so there are cities out there actively engaged in trying to recruit a Major League Baseball team to their hometowns.
Curtis Gregory, thank you for being here. I know it was a late night for you, and we appreciate the time on KCMO.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on. And I just want to reiterate once again, this is not the tax dollars that you're sending to the state out of your paycheck. This is the tax dollars coming from Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, and Patrick Mahomes that is going to help pay for these upgrades for keeping our teams right here in Kansas City, Missouri.
Thank you, Senator. We appreciate the time.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
All right. Curtis Gregory on KCMO Talk Radio. Northland State Senator, a newcomer in the state Senate, and already obviously making a lot of noise. It's very rare for a freshman to have this kind of power is the wrong word, but obviously lead the way on something of this scope and size. 913-408-7957. That's our text line, and our studio line will roll until 10 o'clock. Keatsman Uncanceled takes over then on KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM. And we'll get to more with you here coming up. All right. Are you telling me I now get a chance to figure out whether or not I want to call my friends at The Plumbing Pro, or The Plumbing Pro? It just depends on the day of the week what I want to call them. I think I'll go with The today. You guys good with that? Everyone's square away with that? Okay, great. At The Plumbing Pro, they have been in business for nearly 50 years in Kansas City. Locally owned, locally operated. A lot of people selling out to the big guys, and that's fine. That's their prerogative, but that's not Steve and his team. He started the company in 1978 with about a $2,000 job, and 50 years later, They are providing some of the best quality plumbing services in Kansas City at a reasonable cost to homeowners and businesses all over the Kansas City metro. So when you need a plumber, you need The Plumbing Pro. That's theplumbingpro.com. Make sure you fit the in The Plumbing Pro, because a lot of people trying to basically steal their name. If you just Google Plumbing Pro, you may not get them. So theplumbingpro.com. Whether you're leaking, clogged, or dripping, and let's be honest, we've all been there, you can rely on theplumbingpro.com. The website, theplumbingpro.com.
It's Mundo in the Morning. Now on FM at 95.7. Set a preset on your radio. KCMO Talk Radio.
So, a question on the text line, Pete, why is Kansas completely off the table? I'm not saying they're completely off the table, but if you want to know the big difference between these two deals, you're talking about $1.5 billion between the Chiefs and the Royals that they can utilize in sales tax revenues that otherwise would have gone to the state of Missouri. So there's a little bit, and Curtis Gregory admitted as much on the call that we just had with him during the interview. You know, Joe Burrow comes here, Josh Allen comes here. Yeah, they pay, taxes, obviously, to play here. That money did go somewhere else. It went somewhere else, obviously, to help the state of Missouri do whatever, whether it was local or otherwise, somewhere out state. It went somewhere else. Now it's going back to, obviously, the team to theoretically pay off improvements for Arrowhead or a new Royal Stadium. Taxes are a zero-sum game, right? I mean, that's just how it works. So if it's not going here and it's going there, you're taking away from A, theoretically, and going to B. Now, you can make the argument if they go to Kansas, there's nothing there anyway. So that's where what it came down to, apparently, is the real fear they might end up in Kansas. Here's the other reason, though, that this is not nearly a deal that's the same size and scope as a star bond. With this deal, you're talking about $1.5 billion to keep these two teams here. It's about $750 million per team over 30 years. It's about $25 million a year, give or take, right? That's the number. If the Chiefs were to build new, you're talking about a $3 to $4 billion stadium that, if they can draw a star bond district large enough, would pay up to 70% of that stadium. They're still technically out of pocket over $1 billion under that theoretical plan if they can get a star bond district big enough, right? So there are still hundreds of millions of dollars at stake here, and different between doing an upgrade at Arrowhead versus, say, building new in Kansas. Doesn't mean they don't consider doing that, but that's the large difference here. In Missouri, it's like, hey, $25 million a team, give or take, per year over 30 years. That gets you to that number. In Kansas, it's how do we draw a district that is big enough and justifiable to pay for upwards of 70% of this new stadium build? So it's really two different conversations. And that's why the Star Bond deal still is quite a bit different from what you're talking about on the Missouri side. The big thing Missouri has going for it right now, at least with the Chiefs, obviously, is it already has the stadium, the infrastructure, the ingress, the egress, and all those things that they don't have to worry about with the new stadium. Doesn't mean they may not ultimately do it, but I think at this point, the odds of either of these two teams going to Kansas with the way things currently stand are very, very slim, if not at zero. I know that, the politicians of Missouri don't want to say they won't leave at this point. That would be jumping ahead a little bit. But for what we do for a living, I feel pretty confident at this point these two teams are not going to leave. Our caller of the day is coming up, and you'll also hear from Mayor Lucas next.
If it's happening in KCMO, it's on KCMO 95.7 FM. Here's Pete Mundo.
9:34. Good morning. Glad you're here on KCMO Talk Radio. We got a half hour until Kevin Keatsman, uncanceled, takes over on 95.7 FM. Well, you can imagine what our caller of the day wanted to talk about today. Let's do it.
Hello?
It's the Mundo in the Morning Caller of the Day. On KCMO Talk Radio, now on FM at 95.7.
913-408-7957. Linda is in Liberty. Go ahead, Linda. You're on KCMO. Good morning.
Good morning. You talk about Jackson County maybe getting a tax cut. What about the rest of us counties around here? I'm in Clay County. What's happened? Are the players going to kick in some money? How about the owners? Some of us are retired, living on Social Security and maybe whatever we've saved. I just think people who live in big houses and, have all the money to pay, $200 to park, really? Can't the players afford to kick in a whole bunch of money? If they want a big, grand stadium, let them pay for it. Some people around here are concerned about losing their homes because of utilities and everything else that has gone up. People that are living in million-dollar houses, making millions of dollars, contracts for several years, they all ought to be able to chip in a little bit and make whatever fancy stadium they want.
There you go. Linda and Liberty fired up this morning. Now, listen, there's certainly plenty to critique. I don't think Travis Kelce is chipping in for a stadium anytime soon. I know Patrick Mahomes makes a lot of money, but, Clark Hunt views Patrick Mahomes as being poor, by the way.
Garage Beer could be their sponsor, their stadium sponsor name.
Hey, anything beats having to look at the Bud Light signs all over the stadium. Goodness gracious.
Can you imagine going up the concession stands like Taco Bell? Would you like to round up today for would you like to round up today for the improvements at the stadium? Yeah, go ahead, put it down.
Oh, man. It's like Mark does it at Hy-Vee, which I will, out of principle, never do.
Mm-hmm.
I just won't do it. I will use my money that I want to give to charitable causes as I see fit, not how Hy-Vee sees fit. But Mark, he does it. What is it, Mark? If it's over, if you're over, the 70-cent mark, you'll round up?
Typically.
Is that your
80,
number?
Depending on the day.
Okay, depending on the mood and the day and the whole thing. Yeah, that wouldn't go well. But I understand where Linda's frustrations lie. Now, when she talks about Jackson County and tax cuts there, what I suggested early this morning, and we talked to the mayor about this a couple hours ago. I'll get to some of his clips here coming up in a second. But what would seem to be the smart thing to do and the politically savvy thing to do for the teams now is they've got this bucket of money from the state that, remember, did not exist 15 months ago. 15 months ago was just, do we extend a 3/8 cent sales tax, which was give or take $25 to $30 million a year per team for the next 30 years. They now got this from the state. So they're playing with house money. Can the Royals figure out a way to get downtown without going to a vote of the people, figure out some bonding deal with the city of Kansas City, Missouri that works for everybody involved? Does the mayor redirect some future taxes, whether it's car rental taxes, hotel taxes, that once again doesn't have to go to the vote of the people? Because the Royals are the far less popular plan here. I'm not saying this is the way to do it that's in the best interest of the taxpayer. That's not what I'm implying here. I'm saying from a team perspective, this would be the politically savvy thing to do. Figure out how the Royals can do a deal with the city of Kansas City, Missouri, since now you have this new bucket of money from the state. And then the Chiefs can go to a ballot by themselves. They can cut the 3/8 cent sales tax to, I would say, less than half, because that would be the right thing to do. If they cut it to half of 3/8 of a penny, that's 3/16 of a cent. That would be the same money that they were getting under the current deal. And they can pitch that to the voter of Jackson County by saying, technically, you're getting a sales tax cut on this. That's how they can pitch it. Now, as some of you have said on the text line, well, this tax was going to expire in 2031 anyway, so is it really a tax cut? Very fair point. I'm just, political standpoint, if you're the Chiefs, that is a way to go about doing this to give yourself great odds to get it passed. Because I also think had the Chiefs been on a separate ballot and the Royals been on a separate ballot last year, the Chiefs vote would have passed and the Royals would have failed colossally.
I remember the steps to this dance we had last time about the tax break tax thing. Yes, it would expire, and so it would be a new tax, but then it would be cheaper.
Yes.
Could be in theory. So not technically a tax break. We had that same conversation, if you remember, 1, 2, cha-cha-cha.
Yeah, I mean, tax break in the sense that, your sales taxes would come down a fraction.
Right.
And I think the average taxpayer, we're talking about like $50, $100 a year. But once again, it's all about the mind game here. Hey, I'm getting, when's the last time anyone said you're getting a tax cut?
It wasn't going to end. I mean, it expires, but something would replace it typically.
Could have, yes. You're right about that. I mean, Frank White was the one who threw out the idea of let's take the 3/8 cent sales tax and do it for capital improvements. And I think that's the last time we heard anything from Frank White, now that I think about it, unless you're going to Monarchs games. So Mayor of Kansas City, Quinton Lucas, joined us for his weekly Thursday spot and could not have been better timing with this breaking news. And here's how the conversation began. Is this enough to keep these teams in the state of Missouri, assuming, of course, it gets through the House and to the governor's desk in the next week?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I think that this is probably the best concrete package that the teams have in our entire region. We have had a lot of conversation over the past year about what the Kansas Star Bonds can do and cannot do. 70% of stadium costs is at least what is claimed. Let me tell you why the Missouri package is better. First of all, 50% covered by the state of Missouri. That's before you're calculating local government jurisdiction investments, which probably, if I'm just doing a rough estimate, can get you above the 25% range or near that. It suggests the Missouri package, just apples to apples, is already superior. Once you then get to the fact that the Star Bond is not backed by a government entity, the state of Kansas isn't issuing bonds. Most likely the city of name your city in Kansas, Gardner, Overland Park, what have you, is not backing those bonds. But on the Missouri side, as you see in our current stadium situations, Jackson County for the current stadiums, the city of Kansas City for its arena, typically would back those. And so you have a cheaper cost of money. You now have a better financial offer. I think that this is a huge step in resolving this conversation that we've had for a long term, but also makes clear that the Missouri side offers are frankly much sweeter, much clearer with jurisdictions that have been doing it for a while.
That was Mayor Lucas giving his perspective this morning, and then here was the follow-up to that. Do you feel like this deal for the Missouri taxpayer is a
Yes, I think what was said by you at the top of this segment makes that clear. This is funding that is generated at the stadiums themselves, the stadiums and surrounding areas. And so what that tells you then is that we have the fortune of actually getting a chance for people. It's kind of like a user tax. People who are paying for the stadium are actually doing it themselves. Sorry for the loud car in the neighborhood. And so what that suggests for me is that this is the sort of thing that is not general revenue. This is not actually looking to rob Peter to pay Paul from some other revenue source. This is looking at what do those teams generate? How do you actually get that back into the stadium to fund the stadium, and allows us to collect, by the way, good revenues off of those stadiums for many other public purposes. It is good public policy, a great proposal by Governor Kehoe, and I think it's the sort of thing that not only gets the deal done, but gets a deal done fairly for our taxpayers.
Telling you, Quinton Lucas may have himself a Mike Kehoe 28 sign in his front yard here coming up in a couple of years. He just might do it. Mike Kehoe, let's be honest, bailed out Quinton Lucas. And fair or not, and it mostly would have been unfair to blame the mayor for had one or both of these two teams left, he would have gotten the blame. He's the mayor. He's the face of the city. It would have really been a potential failure of Jackson County and the state of Missouri, more so than just Kansas City, Missouri. But most of the blame would have gone on the mayor. Some people would have wanted to place that blame there no matter what. For some, it would have been dancing on the grave of Mayor Lucas. And he would have had to, like it or not, own some of that, fair or unfair. But the Missouri State Senate and Mike Kehoe, the governor, gave Quinton Lucas the bailout that I think he desperately needed to keep these two teams in Missouri in particular. I still think it's overwhelmingly likely, even though I've long thought that the Clay County spot's a really good spot. I think this deal actually makes it so they can probably figure out a way to get this done in downtown. And obviously, Washington Square Park appears to be the place that is preferred by now the city, but also the team, for what that's worth. But you know what would be nice to see now that we're past the chaos of this, and this will pass the House. It will get signed by the governor. The House already passed this bill, so there's not going to be a lot of drama next week with the House side of this. Could the team show up and just tell us what you're going to do and where? I mean, at least say, hey, we got 3 weeks left or whatever it is, and we got Kansas and Missouri, and even though I think they're overwhelmingly likely to stay, just throw out some ideas on what you've been thinking. Can you now give people something to work with? Is that too much to ask for either or both of these teams? Goodness gracious.
Nice watercolor rendering, not something copied off the internet.
Yeah, please. And not like all those viral photos of the Chiefs Dome Stadium in Kansas that was put together by some random guy that now is getting used all over the place. Can you guys put something together? Give people something to work with. The state did what you wanted. You're moving the ball forward. Now just be fair to the folks. We'll wrap up the show with some information on a great event that we love being a part of before Kevin Keatsman uncanceled at 10 o'clock.
Hey, it's Kevin Keatsman. Stick around. I'm coming up at 10 o'clock right after Pete Mundo on KCMO 95.7 FM.
Well, we're getting towards that time of year. Of course, it's one of our favorite events happening around Kansas City. The Greek Festival, St. Dionysus, right here in Overland Park is where you can go on June 6th and June 7th, this Friday, this Saturday. And we are being joined by Athen Parahoritis here on KCMO Talk Radio and Neela Wick joining us on 95.7 FM. So, Athen, let's start with you. What year is this now, and how is this year going to be different, unique? What are you bringing to the table this time around?
This is our 62nd year for the festival. A lot of your favorite foods that we've had past, but Nella just told me we have 2 new desserts, and we'll have the food, the dancing, the church tours, the boutique, and fun.
So take me through for people who maybe haven't been. I know there's a lot of people listening, and they are now circling the calendar for the 6th and the 7th of June. They're fired up. They're ready to roll. But for maybe newcomers to Kansas City or those who just haven't been out, I mean, I've been out every year. And I'll tell you right now, it is authentic Greek. It is a great time. The food is tremendous. But what makes it so authentic and unique to Kansas City when you put this on now 62 years running?
Well, the food. I mean, we bake and cook 95% of the food that we serve. We've been there since March, every Saturday cooking food, deep freezing it, getting it ready for the festival. We don't just buy it and let somebody else make it for us.
Well, Nella, take me through what new desserts you have coming up here at the festival this year.
This year, we're trying 2 different desserts to see if they will sell, and I know they will, because my sisters and I, when we go to Greece, we go crazy over them. Sometimes we even buy the whole pan and take home. The one is portokalopita, which is an orange, basically a pie with honey. And the other is a chocolate pie. We call it sokolatopita. And that has, of course, honey on top of it, too. So we're going to see how those 2 items will go. And if they do go well, just like the baklava cheesecake, then we will order even more for next year.
That's amazing. So you're, and I've seen you there working hard during the festival. You're the extraordinaire behind the scenes. Are you going to be out on the dance floor this year or no?
No, I never even have time to see my grandchildren dance.
I know.
Because I'm very busy in the kitchen. I don't have time.
Oh, I see you. Yeah. You run a tight ship there, though. I've
Very.
seen you. I've seen you in action. So it's an amazing event. And what else for people that have not been out there? Same question I asked Athen. What is the thing that they need to come out and really experience?
Well, the one thing that I believe that is the most important is what we call philoxenia. We have people coming to Greece, and we open up our arms and we welcome them. We welcome them. We make them feel like they are at home. We want them to have a good time, not just eating our food, but also enjoy our dancers and the music. And they can even go up and dance themselves, learn some of the things too. So it is a fun time.
It is fun. My kids always love it. They're always dancing, it seems like, every year. So we're looking forward to it, and we appreciate you both being here on KCMO. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Pete. Thank you for having us.
You bet.
We appreciate it.
Athen Parahoritis and Nella Wick on KCMO. It is the St. Dionysius Greek Festival, June 6th and 7th, right in Overland Park on 95th Street. Do not miss it. Friday, 4 to 10 p.m. Saturday, 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. Great way to get your weekend going. We appreciate them being here. That's right. That's right. John, he's all fired up.
You bet.
I'm actually going to, unfortunately, miss it this weekend. First time I'll have missed it in my time in Kansas City. But you know what? I guess I didn't plan some time off properly. That happens once in a while. Kevin Keatsman Uncanceled is coming up. And I'll tell you what, this story, obviously, with the stadiums is not over. It's just going into, I guess, the next chapter of the book. But it will... Well, I was going to say it might die down here. I'm probably wrong when I say that.
Here comes Kansas with more star bonds.
I know, seriously. Kansas at this point cannot extend the star bond deal. Not saying that they shouldn't feel like they got a chance, but let's just wrap this thing up by the end of June. At least know which side of the state line these teams are going to be on. But this radio station, I'm so proud of having led the way on this story with our connections, insight. A lot of people have, called, texted, emailed, and been like, well, I don't know if this is a sports story. It is not a sports story. Think about it. This story is a political story at its core. You saw it play out at 2:30 in the morning in the state Senate in Jeff City today. Some may think it's a sports story because it involves sports teams. It's not a sports story. It's economic development debates. Are you giving out taxpayer money or not? What does the Senate do? What does the House do? How's the governor handling this? There's horse trading going on. It is at its core a political deal. And I'm so proud of how this radio station and our local shows here have led the way on this story and given also you a platform to opine in a way that maybe other platforms have not. We haven't had any big swings and misses like certain radio hosts in Kansas City. That's your cue there, Mark.
Ow!
Thank you. Thank you very much. So, we're just going to keep owning this thing and kicking our competitors' butts every single step of the way. Have a great rest of your Thursday. Kevin Keatsman, uncanceled. You never want to miss it, but you definitely don't want to miss it. Coming up next on 95.7 FM KCMO.